So going to go ahead and get that started. All right. And then let's go ahead and go to the next one. So hi, everybody. I'm Josh Bucher, a research analyst for the Cloud Security Alliance. I help the Cloud Security Alliance support the DevSecOps working group, the working group for today. And then I guess go back to the previous slide because we have yet to introduce John Yo. You should be able to use the left arrow to go back there.
Yeah, you shouldn't have given me slide control. That was a mistake off the bat there, Josh.
Yeah.
My name's John Yo. Yeah, slides, right? How can that be so difficult? Losing my competency here. My name's John Yo. I'm the head of research at CSA. And here just to talk a little bit about, why CSA has been doing research in DevOps, how it fits into the whole research picture. And yeah, I'll look forward to getting into that pretty soon. But outside of CSA, I'm on a lot of different advisories and advisory committees and advisory boards. So I'll work with the FCC on some of the IoT stuff that they do, as well as when we brought out the 5G network a couple of years ago. In addition to that, I'm on a couple other advisories for different countries, and I sit as a U.S. delegate on several of those. So yeah, that's me in a really small nutshell. And I'm going to work on getting that previous slide up now, Josh. Give me 2 seconds.
If you want, we can swap off and I'll host the slides and you can keep an eye on the waiting room and chat. If that sounds good.
That sounds good to me.
All right, let me get that going. Share my screen. All right. Hopefully everyone is able to see that. Except need to get it through the slides really quick.
Looks good to me.
All right. So coming up next, we have the co-chairs for the DevSecOps working group. So we have Sam, Capel, and Chris. Currently, Capel is at a conference, but we're hoping that he'll be able to join us later in the meeting. So let's start with Sam. Do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Sure. So my name is Sam Segal. I've been the co-chair for CSA DevSecOps working group since last year. And prior to that, I was also an author for one of the pillar documents that, or co-author of one of the pillar documents that we'll talk about in a second. In addition to that, I'm a DevSecOps program lead and an architect and a strategist for the security automation programs at Dell. So my goal at Dell is to ensure that we follow the best practices, the right controls, the right tooling across all of the products and applications that are developed and delivered to our customers. It's a bit about me. I guess next, Chris.
Yeah, Chris Kershke, been in the InfoSec space for around 22 years now. Currently, I'm the Cloud Portfolio Information Security Officer for Albertsons Companies, overseeing our code to cloud initiatives. Again, ensuring that we're inserting our tooling into the right steps and stages, ensuring we're following best practices, and driving the innovation around our adoption of DevSecOps and cloud security.
Awesome. Thank you.
A couple is not here, is that right?
Yeah, so unfortunately, there was a scheduling conflict that couldn't be avoided. He's currently presenting at a conference at the moment, but we're hoping that around the half-hour mark, he'll be able to join us here. So we'll keep an eye on for him. So John, would you like to?
Yeah, this is a perfect slide to kind of just refer to as well. One of those things where, level setting, who's familiar with CSA, and just sharing a little bit about what we do and what we're responsible for. So we're a pretty large industry group. You can tell by this slide. We have around 127,000 members, and this is updated maybe as of about a month ago. So I know we've probably grown a little bit since then too. But in addition to the membership, the individual membership, there's chapters around the world, everywhere, over 100 of them. We also have companies that are part of the membership. These are cloud solution providers, enterprise end users. So Chris is from Albertsons. There's other retailers, banks, healthcare organizations, and organizations like that are a part of CSA. We do a lot of different research, and that research turns into government engagements, whether it's advisory and consultant works for different industry leads. We do a lot of, we end up creating a lot of best practices and frameworks that people are using for cloud. And as the industry evolves, we certainly try to adapt to that as well. So this next slide that just popped up there is just a good example of our collaboration that CSA has. So we'll talk a lot about research that we're going to be doing with the working group, research that we'll be doing across really the research portfolio that CSA has. This slide's important because I want people to know that we're not working in a vacuum here. We have a good crew. I think that's part of the DevSecOps crew. I hope that includes you. But in addition to that, these are just a list of some of the organizations that we align with. So you'll see other professional organizations, standard development organizations, some of the government entities. And to me, this is just, CSA saying, hey, we're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're here to complement the industry, understand the gaps that need to be addressed. And as a consensus, as a working group, that's how we want to take the approach. So we'll get the opinions of many. We want people to speak up. We want people to share, how they're doing things. And then together we'll identify this pattern for a best practice, stick into something really cool, like a framework, a maturity model, reference architecture, or just a white paper, and put that out there for not just the CSA community to absorb, but you'll see that it'll get injected and shared with all these other industry groups, making sure that we have really long legs when we produce a research artifact, or when we get together, it's going to hopefully echo in the industry, and we'll be able to share that across many of these organizations here. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. And, when we started doing cloud security, obviously people wondered why we were exploring different areas. You're doing things in IoT, blockchain, and now you're doing DevOps. And I think it's simple to put that together to where cloud enables a lot of these new technologies and a lot of these techniques to be able to happen. Or maybe we even need these techniques. We need to move faster in the build cycle because we are in the cloud. So either way you want to spin it, I think DevOps plays such a huge role when it comes to cloud, because now we have the capabilities to build things faster, to be more agile. And now we need processes in place, especially with our development teams, to be able to do that. So the next slide kind of highlights a lot of these things here too. Here's a list of almost all the working groups that CSA has. I'd say if you look at this really quickly, the thing that's probably missing here is CSA has talked about zero trust a lot. And the way we're looking at this research is looking at it with a zero trust lens as well. So when it comes to zero trust, when it comes to creating more transparency and verifying some of that implicit trust that we have with third-party relationships, especially in the world of cloud and in the world of software development, it's pretty important to also have that lens on there. But you can see we try to start from the basics. Like if you look at the bottom, there's things like understanding, major or basic cloud foundational pieces, auditing, security services, and as you kind of move up to the top, there's advanced techniques that you'll need to understand. And DevOps kind of is that. As we get more mature in cloud, securing DevOps is going to be such an important piece. So in addition to what Josh, Krish, and Sam will outline today, there's containers and microservices that CSA has been working on a lot of, and we'll probably share, some of those publications underneath this DevOps umbrella pretty soon. The serverless falls under that too. So we look at those as tools that enable DevOps, that help us to be more efficient and be more agile in the DevOps process. But what this group's going to also tie in together is just the whole DevOps methodology, helping produce reference architecture, maybe secure code libraries that can really enable developers to adopt these methodologies better. So with that said, hey, Josh, I think that wraps it up.
Yeah, so with all that said, how are we approaching DevSecOps? So where we're starting is with the 6-pillar series to provide the foundation of how do you actually build a really solid DevSecOps program for your company or organization. And then once we have that foundation, where do we go from there? Do we build out some additional guidance on how to implement this? Or perhaps some libraries to help you consume these standards in a more automated fashion? That's definitely something we'll discuss more later on. So with that said, Sam, I will pass it off to you to cover what have we done so far as part of the working group and the 6-pillar series.
Sounds good. And thanks, Josh. So I think before we can cover what we have done so far, I think let's take a step back and talk about, you know, what is the purpose of the framework that is put together within DevSecOps working group. So this group came into existence a few years ago as a joint partnership between CSA and SafeCode. And DevSecOps means different things to different people. And obviously, it's not just about tools. It's not just about automation. It's not just about bringing one party together with another. It's a combination of multiple strategies. So what we did was, as an organization, we said, let's put together a comprehensive framework that touches everything that is necessary. Think of this as a recipe of success, recipe for success. And we put that together obviously with the help of all of the volunteers and the authors that we have on the call, or maybe not on the call, a 6-pillar document, which defines all of the 6 key ingredients that are necessary, or we think that are necessary for an organization to embark upon a journey and be successful at it. So if you look at the first 2 documents, the 2019 6-pillar documents and the reflexive security. So think of this as a high-level guide into what those 6 pillars are. Just to give you some idea, these 6 pillars are about collaboration, partnership, about automation, about pragmatic implementation, about measuring, about instrumentation. So all of the things that we can think of are necessary for an organization to be successful are defined in there. So once that was launched in 2019 August, the next step was, let's go deeper into each of these pillars and double click on them. So that's where the next pillar came into picture, which is the collective responsibility. You can see 2020 launch date. That goes into topics of how the siloed parts of the organization can come together, or should come together, to make sure that security is everyone's responsibility, and take this upon as a joint effort. So again, that was another paper. And moving on to the automation. So we all recognize that automation is key. It gives us a lot of efficiencies. It gives us speed and agility. And whatever can be automated should be automated. But again, there are certain parts that cannot be automated. So we got to be cognizant of those as well. So that paper, which was launched in 2020, speaks to that. Then the last one, which is a more recent release this year, was about bridging compliance and development. And almost all organizations, or most of the organization, have some kind of compliance requirements, whether it's pertaining to the financial industry, healthcare industry, or government, and so on and so forth. And compliance and security kind of go hand in hand, and also with the engineering teams as well, but there seems to be a disconnect in the industry. So the goal of this paper was to outline some recommendations, some strategies, how these 2 different parallel running functions can come together and support each other. In the end, we all want to make sure that our organizations are secure and are following the guidelines and the regulatory requirements of our the government or the jurisdiction that we are in. So this paper speaks to that. So you can probably do the math, and you can see there are 3 papers that are done, 6 of 6, and there are 3 that are remaining. So we're going to talk about those. But I think you're getting a gist of it that, our first step is to get these foundational papers out so we can start to build on that and get into more exciting, more emerging areas, so which we will cover in a second. But this is a progress so far. We have come a long way, but we still got a long way to go as we look into the future. Any questions before I hand it over to Chris? Okay, but we'll definitely take questions at the end as well. So I'll hand over to Chris, who's going to talk to us about new emerging and focus areas.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, so what does come after the 6-pillar series? And this is the community coming together to operationalize the 6 pillars within various verticals, within various personas, but also how do we see around the
I think we lost the audio.
Yeah. Please stand by for technical difficulties. Wouldn't be a presentation without him, right? We'll give Chris a second here for his connection to hopefully stabilize.
This is going to be where we're going to want to get a lot of discussion going to, right? Because what we want to do, I think going forward is really going to depend on, the people on this call, those who are on the grounds, practicing DevOps, implementing DevOps. But yeah, I know Chris is one of those people, so I'm anxious to hear from him.
Yeah, and to kind of expand on that, this is definitely a community-led effort. So a lot of what we tackle is going to be guided by what the community is actually interested in kind of developing next, and what are the actual problems that we're facing within the industry that we can help with this working group.
Agreed. Yeah, well said.
So
hi, John. By the way, nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Mauricio Cano. John, you mentioned something about serverless containerization. That was also part of the DevSecOps research. Will you be talking a little bit about that later, or should I just save the question for the end? Because I'm quite interested in that part.
Yeah. So we have, so this group spun off from another group that we were doing with NIST. And that group focused on a lot of the container and microservices piece. And it just came to a point where we had produced risks and challenges with containers and microservices, best practices for each of those two, and then even an architectural pattern for microservices. And with that taking a pause, we went back to focus on this overall methodologies and principles and pillars that Sam had talked about. But ongoing also is some of the serverless pieces. And so we did a risk on serverless, some best practices around there. And all those will be kind of work streams underneath what this whole DevSecOps would be. And we will touch on that a little bit, I think, Josh, but happy to do a lot more follow-up. I know with such a brief call, we wanted to at least share what Sam and Chris is going to be working on and what they wanted to share. But yeah, that's absolutely part of this picture. And Josh, you have to remind me if we're going to talk a little bit about those other initiatives later too.
yeah, it looks like Sam, maybe you wanted to chime in there. Yeah,
so I think even though we're not going to directly talk about the containers and microservices, but we are looking at some future areas that this working group can come together and start to create new guidelines and recommendations. So as John mentioned, that we have done some work already in a couple of areas related to containers and technologies, but there's a lot more we can do. So again, we have an opportunity as this organization, as this collective representation from the industry to see what are those areas, especially in those use cases, in those technologies that can be addressed through the framework or through the lens of the DevSecOps. So the opportunity is in front of us.
Yeah, great.
I'm back.
Cool. Abdul, I know you have your hand raised, but with Chris back, Chris, go and continue, and Abdul, you'll be the next person we call on.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
I'm not sure where exactly my Zoom crashed there, but
Take it from the top.
yeah, it's, I think what we're saying is that there's two ways to look at what comes after the 6 pillars, and one is from the operationalization of it and the work that all the members here are doing around that on a per vertical or on a per reference architecture concept. But then also, how do we see around the corner on what's coming next? Security always being an ever evolving threat landscape, technology always changing. How do we keep up as a DevSecOps working group, and how do we keep ahead of that curve so that we can keep our organizations ahead of that threat curve? So some of the ideas that we've had coming around here are, the implementation plans, right? I reached out to a friend of mine at Atlassian to see if they would be willing to throw in an engineer to create sample and exportable and importable JIRA initiatives, epic stories, issues that would map to the individual pillars, right? So if you wanted to create an initiative around DevSecOps, you would actually be able to just go into GitHub, check that out, and bring that into your JIRA instance. Consumable frameworks. And when you do DevSecOps, again, this goes back to CSA, et cetera. So how do we get those controls that audit can actually look back into the work we're doing so that everybody can say, are you doing what you say you're going to do, right? And then the absolute list of controls or the reference architectural diagrams, if you're a single pipeline shop or if you're a multi-pipeline shop, where are those insertion points? Also, Josh has talked about, the ability to share code. Maybe there's a shared GitHub repository around, if it's integration code sitting in your Jenkins pipelines, or if it's GitHub actions and chaining together that, how do we share that together so that we accelerate the adoption across the community? And then, where I love to play is in the metrics side, right? How do you go back to your board and tell them that what the initiative that you've implemented is actually working, right? I just had a great presentation with our board around, here's our vulnerability reporting as of right now in our application stacks. Here's what I expect it to look like upon completion of this initiative. And the board was blown away by that idea that you can have such a massive reduction in your vulnerabilities by doing this. And then, kind of as we look to see around the corner, there's various initiatives that are being worked on to try and pull or at least close the loop between that shift left, shift right mentality. So they're, the Gartners and the vendors of the world are starting to call that code to cloud to code. We'll try to keep up and actually stay ahead. So that's what's coming after the 6 pillar series.
Thank you, Chris. And it looks like we actually do have Capel. It looks like he was able to make it. So if you would like to cover what we're currently working on.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. I think, sorry for the delay. I was kind of, been occupied one of the conference over here. So glad to meet you all. This is Kapil Bareja. I've been with us in cybersecurity, or specifically, for 18 plus years, focusing on the cloud, the DevSecOps, and other areas specifically, and then also being associated with ATARC, which is Academic Research Technology Center. It's kind of for me to help and specifically, what our industry is moving in, and specifically the convergence happening from the cloud industry. So to talk about the pillars, what I can say, I need a help, and what work we have done so far, in bringing up, all the pillars up to the speed, specifically from, the when we start this, this group specific, and to be honest, this pillar 2 and pillar 4 and these 3 pillars are the most prominent ones, and I and this time, what we are, looking to solve some of
Hey,
the knowledge, collaboration, and
sorry to
integration from.
interrupt, Kapil. My apologies. But looks like you may have a poor audio connection. Your voice a bit choppy in the beginning. It's slightly better, but not
Okay.
sure if it's fully perfect yet for everybody.
It's better now.
It's
Yep.
yes, it's better. So we'll let you
Okay.
know in case it gets worse again.
Absolutely. Let me know if you still feel the noise, and I'll reconnect back again. Okay. Yeah. So I just are discussing about the pillar 2, which is mostly from the collaboration and integration point of view. There is definitely a lot of knowledge and skills and talent which is required at the front of what our cloud collaboration or the industry is looking to solve. So the major prerequisite for us is to establish that culture within the organization, within the your teams, and specifically what how you basically bring in a lot of specific pragmatic point solutions, the demos and the POCs for you to succeed with your use cases with the customers, and some of the the tools which you can embed while working with the lot of your vendors and the customers. So that's a pillar 2, that's a collaboration effort. And pillar 3, which is more on the implementation, which is right on the you see the point and solutions from the proliferation of what each organization is looking to solve. It's a one size fit for all. And then definitely the framework that we are planning to implement or building up using the software life cycles, specifically what the security needs are from the DevSecOps perspective. We need to have that mindset, to bring in and enable the solution enablement for the security on the cloud side, specifically on the applications and the workloads that we are kind of onboarding on day-to-day basis into the cloud. So that's the a pragmatic implementation pillar that we are planning to build. So, and the next in pillar 6, which is definitely one of the most important on the measuring, monitoring, and report. So this is again one of the actionable metrics that our leadership, our leaders are looking to solve, and they want to contribute on and getting the right KPIs, or what that frequency could be, the patch time, how quickly we can have a rolling updates back in in the system for some of their the cloud platforms they are using, which is mostly from the percentage of the code that in the unit testing that happens. So this is more of the a kind of I would say an important reporting aspect what we need to provide to industry, and that's what we need the help with. So yeah, this is what it from the DevSecOps, all these 3 pillars. And I think Chris and Sam, Josh, you might have talked about the important stuff.
Thanks, thanks, Kapil. So just to add a little bit 2 cents on my side from my side. So I think what you saw was in the beginning a short-term roadmap of all of the 6 pillar documents. Some of that has already been completed. You saw from Chris a forward-looking vision of what we want to do beyond the 6 pillar documents. And then you just saw Kapil talk about the remaining ongoing active projects or documents that we have. So I think this is a great opportunity for all of the folks on the call, because we see a very nice collective representation of the experience and the knowledge and expertise. So if you have interest and expertise to contribute any of these papers, you're most welcome and invited to join and be a co-author or a lead author in whatever capacity that you feel comfortable with to contribute the 3 documents that Kapil was just talking about. So again, these are something that is work in progress, and we would like to complete them with all your inputs. So we welcome any contributions, any volunteers from the audience. And I'll hand over to Josh to talk some of the logistics on that.
Yeah, and maybe John, you could chime in here a little bit too, but to kind of get yourself started and familiarized with what we've done so far and what we're kind of trying to tackle with the remaining pillars, we have the first link to the 6 pillar series. So all of the documents that you saw earlier on the timeline slide are free and open for download. So that can help you familiarize yourself with the approach that we're taking here. And then to join the working group itself, we have the other second link that will take you to a page where you can sign up, and it'll give you basically an onboarding email that will show you all the next steps to take to find what areas you're interested in contributing to and kind of getting started with the working group there. One of the recent things that we've also started is a public Slack channel to help having the asynchronous communications going. So if you're interested in joining that, please email me at Josh Bucher or jbucher@cloudsecurityalliance.org. And last but not least, we also have the monthly meetings. So our next meeting is currently scheduled for May 26th at 8 a.m. Pacific. So if you're interested in joining the working group, that would be a great opportunity to get in there and communicate with the rest of the working group there. John, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add into there.
Yeah, that's all pretty good stuff too. I think those are important links to share and places to go. I would remind too that experts definitely welcomed. We need experts to really that understand how to deploy and create some of the stuff that we want to share. But we also need everybody, because as we create playbooks and guidance, a lot of people who are in the weeds need other perspectives too, right? So if we're going to explain something to the broader audience, we need people to help curate some of those things too. So definitely come share. If you have expertise, we definitely need you and want you. But we need people across the board. And so hopefully you can come contribute, share, learn. That's really what this platform, this community is all about. So I encourage everybody to be a part of it, and tell your friends, tell your colleagues, come join the fun. We don't just work hard, but when we see each other, we have a lot of fun together too. So I can always look forward to that.
Yeah, and John, you touched on it a little bit, but I want to really emphasize it is there is no such thing as too many perspectives, I think. Like, we really want to get a diverse number of views and make sure that we have a holistic perspective when we're tackling these papers. So don't ever feel like, oh, well, there's probably enough people already on there. Like, if you feel you have the expertise to contribute, you're always welcome. So.
You know, there are a lot of questions too, and I know Abdul had raised his hand, earlier. And so if you want to start with questions now, Josh, I want to say that Abdul is probably first in line here, huh? And then I see some coming from the chat too. So Tracy and others. Yep.
Yeah. So I guess Abdul, you had the kind of first dibs there. So.
All right. Thanks, John. Thanks, Josh. So just wanted to basically, this is great. Like the pillars look great, and I'm super interested about it as well. So what are the logistics around? You mentioned a lead author and contributors and all. Like, what are the logistics around each one of those?
Josh, you want to take that? Or you want me to? Yes.
John,
So there's a couple different ways we collaborate. So what I encourage everybody to join is this CSA Circle platform that was created, primarily for the research working groups. but everything is collected there. So we have one, kind of a single resource and single source of truth where everything is. But we collaborate on just the Google Doc platform, just because it seems really easy to collaborate with people working on different time zones and everything. The co-chairs and whoever is going to lead the pillars or whatever authorship that we were working on, they'll lead the effort and they'll collect the authors. We're looking to get the right expertise in there. It's a Google Doc, so everybody's going to see it. So when you put something in there, I think it's something where if somebody says something wrong, somebody will correct it, somebody will comment on it, somebody will ask questions. So it's one of those things where we like to have contribution from everybody. But when it comes to lead authorship, yeah, get together with Josh, get together with the co-chairs, and we'll position you to be successful, to be in the right place. The time commitments and the project timelines, we work together on that. We certainly want to be fast and be the first to produce something, but we're a group of volunteers. I know everybody has day jobs, and so we're pretty lenient on how we operate. We just know that a couple principles, like many hands do less work, and then also when you commit to something, we just hope that if you don't come through, someone has to pick up the slack. So hopefully when you commit to writing something that you can commit to that, or at least just be transparent, and we can find help, other areas of support. But yeah, I think the idea, the first step is raising your hand and saying like, hey, this is my jam, this is my bag, I want to help out in this area. And I know Chris, Josh, Sam would love to just, and couple would love to just bring you on board.
Yeah, so I'm definitely thanks for the answer. I'm definitely interested in basically like contributing to the automation piece and to the continuous monitoring piece, something that I'm driving at work as well. Like in terms of like using big data, AI, machine learning, automation, and continuous monitoring for detections, like managed risk, like security awareness and all of that stuff. So curious that like you have these multiple pillars. Like, do each of these pillars have their own meeting times as well, where let's say the groups would get together and sort of like discuss further and deep dive, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we need to revisit, basically figure out what times would work best for each of those subgroups. But typically, yes, we do have a call for each of the pillars to get together and collaborate and see what the next steps are. And that is separate from the main central working group meeting.
Sounds good. I mean, I can reach out offline, Josh, to you and John, basically to discuss further.
Cool.
Yeah, and to kind of add a little bit to that too, some great next steps if you are interested in contributing to the pillars would be checking out that sign up link that I put into the Zoom chat, and then attending the next working group meeting on the May 26th.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, so usually these smaller sub working groups or the author teams will work together on their own at a time that works for them. So you have the flexibility. Let's say if you form a 3-people team who are authoring a paper, then you can pick and choose what time works. But then we have, as Josh mentioned, a core team meeting that happens once every 2 weeks. And that's what we expect, that the folks, at least one of the person from the team will join and will share, what progress they have made, or what are the roadblocks, or any feedback they need from the team. So core team is an opportunity for everybody to come in, share, collaborate, and then go back to their world where they work on it, and then they collaborate in a smaller team.
That makes sense. So that's the May 26th meeting, Sam, that you're talking about, right?
Correct.
Awesome. Okay.
I'm not sure if everybody saw the link that Josh posted. So that's actually pretty good. So if you have interest and you want to express it formally in any capacity, that's the best place to go. You just click on the link. There's a form that you fill out, and it's going to ask you some very simple, quick question. And within a couple of minutes, we will get your input in terms of what your interests are and what your availability. So that's the best way to get started.
Absolutely. So I want to make sure that we cover a couple of the questions that were in chat. Let's see. So we had one from Tracy on if we're considering OKRs, value stream design, DevOps/DevSecOps digital platform design, and then also DORA metrics. I guess any of the co-chairs, would you like to chime in there?
I'll take a stab at. Oh, Chris, you're raising.
No, go for it.
So I'm just going to take a stab at the metrics part. So one of the papers that we haven't started working on it is the measurement and reporting. And so all of these ideas, for example, the DORA form of presenting and capturing metrics, and then the OKR form, which is more for capturing the objectives and results. So these are some of the potential areas that are great candidates to be captured, addressed, and then we make some recommendation in the paper. So short answer is yes, these are potential areas that we want to talk about, and the vehicle, the instrument to talk about it is the upcoming paper that we discussed a few minutes ago. Chris, you want to add something to it?
No, it's just, yeah, I mean, this is one of my near and dears. That's all. It's, you know, as you come out of any of these implementations, the ability to show where that value has been achieved is critical, especially as you go out for budgetary funding, professional recognition, internal recognition, etc. Looking very forward to this effort, this pillar.
Yeah. So one.
I was just going to mention one thing too. When you look at the outlines of the current pillars or even the past ones, that I mean, we don't need to color within the lines here, right? If there's something that we haven't considered, yeah, put it out there. And I think, yeah, we do everything consensusly, right? So if there's a few other people that agree, yeah, we're going to include something like that too, right? So for sure.
Yeah. So one of the other questions that we got was, what are some of these standard metrics that participants in the DevSecOps community should be aware of while co-authoring a white paper? John, would you like to cover that one?
Repeat that one more time, Josh.
Yeah. So what are some of the standard metrics that participants in the DevSecOps community should be aware of while co-authoring a white paper?
Standard metrics, boy, I think it's just any type of timelines that the group wants to commit to. I think that's pretty important, right? I think I mentioned the whole, hey, you know, as a team, we want to make sure that, you know, we're not having other people pick up the slack. We like to produce stuff around, you know, larger events. So RSA is coming up in June. There's Black Hat and DEF CON. There's the CSA event in September called September. And the reason why we like to do that too is just because there's a lot of notoriety there, right? We can publish something, CSA can do a press release around it too, and just give it a lot of fanfare so that people know we just produced something really cool in DevOps, and we can get a lot of people to read it, download it, and implement it. So yeah, the timelines will be based off of you know, what Sam, Couple, and Chris and Josh put together. And yeah, as far as that goes, I think I mentioned that we're pretty lenient. Hopefully that's kind of address the question as far as standards, the expectations go.
Yeah, thank you, John. One of the other questions that we got is, are the slides going to be made available after the presentation? And the answer is yes, we can go ahead and do that, and I'll get those posted to the mailing list and Circle platform.
Perhaps one question on that, Josh. Once you get sign up on the working group, do you get automatically enlisted in the mailing group, or do we have to email you about that?
So the onboarding email will include basically how to sign up for Circle and the mailing list and that kind of stuff. We are working on automating that, but that is still a work in progress.
Okay.
Thank you. That's a great question.
There's an email that's triggered too that explains the next steps and joining the Circle platform, right, Josh?
Yeah, and it's kind of a one-stop shop for the relevant links as well. So it should have hopefully everything that you need to get started. And if you ever lost on what to do next, it should be a good reference point.
Okay.
Alrighty, so I think
one last question. This is Ashish here. John, I hope you remember me. Ashish from the blockchain working group. Yeah, hi. So one last question: is there any plan to integrate the work that comes out of this working group with the other working groups? You know, like the blockchain working group, or the IoT working group, or the quantum safe working group? I mean, do cross collaborative work, you know, and together, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
I think that visibility is always going to be there. And early on, Ashish, there was a slide that highlighted all the working groups and kind of how they're tied together. But yeah, absolutely. There's the core groups that will kind of work under the DevOps family. And I mentioned
Right.
containers, microservices, and serverless. But yeah, how does this impact the rest of the research portfolio? And Ashish mentioned, is this going to be something where blockchain is going to be impacted? You know, maybe I think there's a distributed ledger security framework that group's working on, which we should pay attention to for sure. Chris talked about implementing controls too, and with the CSA's cloud security controls framework, I think it's good to maybe even map towards that, but also do something a lot more prescriptive for developers and for building applications. So
Exactly. I mean,
yeah,
I agree entirely. I mean, because that's what we're also trying to do in one of the subgroups at the blockchain working group to take, you know, I mean, the CCM controls are awesome, but how do you map it to these new frameworks and new technologies, right? That is the big challenge that is arising right
yeah,
now.
very cool. Well, Ashish, keep hanging out with this
Yeah.
group and we'll make sure we have a proper link there too then.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll try my best. I mean, it's tough, you know, to jump between different groups again and again. The blockchain group itself is now become very busy, and then the quantum safe group is there. And I mean, I'm really excited about what has happened so far in this group. But I'll try my best, you know, to give time here also.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll also be there too to make sure everything is connected too. So Josh is
Sure.
very on top of that stuff as well.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I actually, you know, I think I should mention this also for the CSA Riyadh chapter in Saudi Arabia. So I had given a talk about the work that the DevSecOps group had done. So, you know, one of, I mean, I presented most of our research that came out to this working group there because I'm in the region, I'm in Dubai, so I just happened to be visiting Saudi Arabia at that point of time. So that's why they looped me in at that point of time. So it was quite an interesting event, you know, to and share the perspective from this working group also. So I mean, there's a lot of very interested people, you know, in the research that we're doing. Basically, that's my key takeaway that I want to give here for the group. That's what I've seen, you know, from my experience talking at multiple forums. Like yesterday, I was speaking at IQT. So there also there's a lot of interest in the work that the CSA does in all its separate research groups. So yeah, I mean, we have to keep working. That's all, you know, and we're all publishing great work collectively. So it's just important to get the word out. That's all.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Ashish.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely feel free to invite the other folks into the working group as well. We're always looking
Sure,
for additional experts to contribute their knowledge.
definitely.
So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up the recording. And we'll have a couple of minutes as we get towards the top of the hour here for any questions or comments or discussion off the recording. But I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen and end the recording.